Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. I promised you fans on Twitter it was going to be lit on the Ron Johnson Show today, and I am lit. I was up late. I don't even know if I could go to sleep after the way that game ended. There was a hero. That hero was not Superman. It was not Batman. It was Hartman, and it wasn't even Kirill. But we'll talk about all of that coming up next on the Ron Johnson Show.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now the Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast. And it starts now.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Just visit FanDuel.com/Locked On to get started today. And I mean, you got hockey parlays, you got basketball parlays. You can just bet the straight out money line. Now with hockey, I'm not going to lie, people. I can't give you any tips on how to bet your hockey. That's going to be Sam Ekstrom. He'll give you some hockey tips if you're looking for some parlays. I don't know if it's a first goal scorer. I don't know if it's any goal scorer because I really don't know who's going to get hot. But I do know this. We are going to talk about Kirill, Bodie, and that man Hartman. Also, there was a golden gopher that kind of jumped out there for me that I was very confused when I heard the name pop up. And so we're going to talk about this golden gopher and the confusion and ending up on the Sports Center top 10. I mean, come on. Like, is there any better debut than that? And we'll talk about that young man coming up next. But remember, people, also, you can download Locked On Sports Minnesota's app on Amazon Fire and Roku. Just go to your Amazon Fire or your Roku device. Go to your apps, hit add channel, search Locked On Sports Minnesota. It'll come up right there on your TV. You can get all of our shows. You can get all of our videos. You can go back and just watch some interviews, some hot clips, some post-game reactions. You're gonna want to be around for the draft. We are going to break down all the draft picks as much as we can, especially Friday. That Friday football after that first round of the draft, we are really going to hit that round table. And then, of course, that Monday after the draft. So you're going to want to stick around for that. And thanks for everybody for making Ron Johnson your first listen. But make sure you check out the Minnesota Football Party. That's 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. You can check out Arif Hassan, Luke Braun, Luke Inman, and Sam Ekstrom on the Football Party. And it varies who shows up. But as I bring my producer into the show, my sidekick, I texted Sam at one point, and I tweeted to Sam that I'm up. I stayed up, Sam. It's lit. You know what?
You made it.
I felt like Hartman, because you got Superman, you got Batman, you got Aquaman. All of them kind of do this throughout their journey. And I feel like Hartman did that. I got my Minnesota Wild shirt on today. I feel like Hartman, he kind of jumped out there and became a hero for the people. One, a hero to get us to bed. Because I was looking up, like, after the second overtime started, I started Googling, like, the longest games in the NHL history. There was some 6 overtime games. 6 overtime games. Are you serious? 6? Like, come on. Somebody just, at that point, I mean, guys are probably just skating, hanging on each other. Just like, dude, just somebody make this. Like, I mean, you have to be exhausted. Plus, then you got to give them, like, the 10 to 15 minute break in between overtimes.
Right.
It's way too much time. So I'm so glad Hartman stepped up. I was a little nervous. I'm not going to lie. On that power play, I think in the first overtime, I was like, this might be the dagger for the Wild. Like that last power play. I was like,
it was dicey.
Yeah. I was like and they got like 6 or 7 solid shots on goal. 6 or 7 solid. And Augustus, what did he say? How did you say it? Gustafson. He was amazing. I mean, 54 shots on goal, 52 saves. Now, at one point in the first period, it was like 21-11 in favor of the Wild shots on goal.
Yep.
And I was like, man, if they continue at this pace, they're going to, and then all of a sudden it ended up being 54 to the Stars and 48 to the Wild. But you know what? All that matters is at the end. You got down to the end and your guy Hartman did it. Now there were, like I said, there was the top 10 play. Brock Faber. Now I heard that name against Quinnipiac and I'm like, does he have a brother? Like I was about to tweet Brett Faber. And then I had to like look again. I'm like, wait, no, that's the same person. And so I didn't realize that either. I didn't realize you could do that you could go pro and then go, literally 10 days later, whatever it was, play in the NHL playoffs. I assume that you go pro and then you go to the team that has your rights at that time. And then you practice, you work out, and you get ready for next season because we know hockey never stops. So that's what my assumption was. And I heard his name and he had a ridiculous save. I mean, he put his stick, and again, it's right place, right time. You don't. I mean, I guess you purposely do that. I'm not gonna hate on hockey players, but for that puck not to go over his stick just a little bit, for him to like just the goalie was dead in the water because he had turned left, and then it was so quick. Like I don't know if he would have got back if he had went high net or upper corner or whatever you want to call it. I don't know 5-hole. I don't even know. I don't think it would have been like, I think it would have been game over. And so that's why I'm guessing Brock Faber got the top 10. I think somebody tweeted to me this morning. It was number 3 on the SportsCenter top 10. So if it's not, hey, blame this person on Twitter. That's 3 Ron Johnson on Twitter. If you want to follow my tweet, because I did respond to that person, but I haven't seen it. But that's what I've heard. It's a top 10 play, which makes sense. It was a huge play and a huge moment. And for that young man to go from playing against Quinnipiac to now playing against the Dallas Stars, that's a huge leap, Sam. But Sam, I know you were up. I know you're a big time hockey mind. I'm excited. Like I said, I'm a playoff hockey person. Like this is my time. I'm probably gonna, I'm gonna reach out to what's his name too, Troy, down in Iowa, and see if we can get him, or Todd Fredrickson, to see if we can get him on the show too to talk a little wild hockey. Because that's the last time I went. Like he was on the power trip with me, and then I kind of joked like I've never been to a hockey game. He's like, "Hey man, I got 2 tickets for you and the wife." I'm like, "Okay." And I went to the playoff hockey game, first hockey game ever. And so now I'm hooked on playoff hockey. Mm-hmm. I don't know so much about regular season hockey. Not gonna lie, I did not go to a game this season. I failed as a parent. I was supposed to get my kids to a hockey game this year, but I did not do it. But Sam, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, well, Ron, playoff hockey is maybe the best postseason of all the postseasons. So this is the time to tune in. It's so good.
Playoff hockey better than football and basketball and March Madness.
Intense.
We have to bring that up Friday. We'll have to rank these Friday.
Yeah.
Friday roundtable. We'll have to rank these. Well, what you got?
The tension, Ron, didn't you feel the tension as the clock turned to midnight, as the clock turned to 1, the price that these guys were paying? The Wild were so gritty. Like, I know that it's very cliche because that's sort of their playoff motto, grit first. But they actually demonstrated that. The defensemen were so tough, laying their bodies on the line. Brodin, Spurgeon, Faber, they were putting it all out there. And it's so hard to score in playoff hockey. Like 5-on-5 last night, there was only 1 goal in regulation, and that was the Wild breakaway to tie it in the second period, sorry. But then it was hard to score even strength in overtime. It's all about special teams. Ron, you were all over this.
I was.
Special teams for Dallas. I mean, that was the scary part for the Wild. The Dallas Stars got 2 quick power play goals, and then when they had the power play in the first overtime, you're sweating. The second overtime, you were sweating. And you kind of knew that if the Wild could just fend off those power plays, they were going to have a good chance. And sure enough, they got the bounce in overtime. But it wasn't, it was kind of a lucky bounce. The puck went right to Hartman. He was all alone in front. Those are the kind of goals that you have to score in the playoffs. You got to be opportunistic, Ron. You got to be opportunistic, and the Wild cashed in when they needed to because the defensive structures are just so well-tuned for all these teams in the postseason.
Yeah, and special teams, again, I think that was the key. When you look at the Stars, when they're defending the power play, they're third. I mean, they clear that puck out. So, I mean, I was saying that like I was just watching it because, again, playoff hockey is a little bit more exciting to me. But just the way they skate together, the way they cover every angle, it almost felt like at times even though they were they were defending the power play, it felt like they were at strength. Like it felt like they were like the Wild could not figure out how to attack their special teams. Like it just, I was like, how are they defending the power play and the Wild look uneasy? Like it just did not come easy to them in the power play. Whereas vice versa, when they were going after the power play, or I don't even know how you say it, when they're in the power play
on the power play,
power play.
Yep.
When they were on the power play, they're fifth as far as attacking, and it showed. Like they had the Wild on their heels. Like they were taking shot after shot. Felt like Little John, shot. Everybody, like every Dallas Stars player was getting a shot. Like I literally, like I don't know if the Wild can do that in their power plays, but that needs to be. I don't know if that's the thing. Maybe that's the thing, and I don't know because I don't go to Wild games. Maybe when the Wild are in the power play, Lil Jon song plays like shot. Like, but that would be a dope collab. Lil Jon, Minnesota Wild, shot after shot. But yeah, like it's amazing. And so for them to get that win, now I don't know where the series is going to go. They do have to play one more there, and then they get to come home for two. And that's why I'm gonna get Todd Fredrickson on here because I need some tickets, maybe. But I don't think it'll work. My daughter has way too many sports now. But when
the games are late, Ron, you could still make it.
They are late, but me and my wife just did the math on her Friday and her Saturday. So last Saturday we were at volleyball. Her last game didn't start till 9:15 p.m. We got there at 1:30. So it was like a 8.5, 9-hour tournament. This Saturday she has a track meet. Saturday. Friday or Saturday. I can't remember. But she has a track meet in the morning. I think it's Friday. I don't know. My days are screwed up. But she has like a track meet in the morning. Then she has volleyball, and then she has softball. Yeah, that's Saturday. She has the Saturday track meet in the morning. Then she has volleyball tournament, and then she has softball that night. It's like, what are we doing? And it's all over too. The softball's in Rosemount. The volleyball is probably in Burnsville or Lakeville. And then the track meet is like at Concordia or something. I think I looked up. So I'm like, oh my goodness. But anyway, so like I'm going from Concordia to Burnsville back over to Rosemount. But when you think about, and I hope they change the Rosemount. I heard it's going to be in Eden Prairie. So I'm hoping that because I do not want to be in Rosemount late at night. But yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. We might have to find a driver to drive my daughter around. But when you think about these late games too, and again, I saw Brandon Molesky tweet this, big time hockey guy, Beyond the Pond on KFan, does the Wild post game. He tweeted that the NHL needs to figure this out. There should have been a 7:00 game, so it could have ended at 9:30, 10 o'clock. One for the young kids that might want to watch a little bit before bed. But that's another one. These late games, because basketball and hockey, for some reason, we're in the Midwest, we're getting screwed. All of our games are late. I feel like Minnesota employers, it should be a clause. Like if the Wild or the Wolves play late, either no work, like it's a company holiday the next day, or you don't have to start till noon. Because either way, they got to figure this out. Because these games are really late. And but man, playoff hockey to me, this is the one thing I'll say though. Gustafsson, 54-52, for 52-54, however you say it. 54 shots on goal, 52 saves. Do you think now with that performance, because we've talked about goalie, and you still have Marc-Andre Fleury, you have the Flower, playoff body sitting back there. How do you like, and again, this is just one game, so I don't want to be captive of the moment because I know how we get in sports. But with a performance like that, how do you even decide to maybe start Fleury? Like, I don't see how you do that.
Yeah, Dean Evison, the head coach, said something kind of interesting. I think it was yesterday. He said, we're going to handle the goalies like we have all year, which insinuates that they're going to rotate because they've been rotating all year. But you got to be adaptable. You got to be flexible. If a guy stands on his head like that, I think you got to go with the hot hand. Now, there is an element of fatigue, Ron. He just played the longest game in franchise history.
True. And this is a team game. True.
Yeah. So in any other circumstance, you might want to rest a guy who played that much. But he's also the guy with momentum, and you don't want to mess with that. So I would start Gustafsson, but it's possible that they preordained this, Ron. It's possible that they told Gus, hey, you're starting game one, but no matter what happens, Fleury gets game 2. Maybe that was the plan all along.
And it could be.
Yeah. It might be. And I'm not totally upset with that either. Like, I think Fleury is capable. But I just like the idea of riding a hot goalie throughout the postseason. And I think that is Gustafsson right now. And I don't want to mess with that. I think you'd have more regret playing Fleury and Fleury having a bad game than if you play Gustafsson and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I'd rather play Gus.
Yeah, because I feel like goalie, like pitchers. So baseball pitchers are different than softball. I'm big softball. My daughter plays big time softball for her age group. She's on a club travel team. And I think they're second best in the state right now. We'll see how they do in the Midwest when that Nationals comes up in Iowa. But when you think about softball, college softball, for instance, those pitchers, because of the motion, can just pitch nonstop. Like, it does eventually start to hurt their shoulder. They get tired, fatigued, but they can go. For baseball, it's a different whip. So guys are having Tommy Johns. They're messing with ligaments, elbows, so on and so forth. So they have to have a pitch count. Softball's like that. When you have a pitcher that's hot and she's just killing it, you ride that. You go with that pitcher. You just let her go until she tells you, all right, I'm starting to lose it, or you notice she's starting to lose it. And I think goalie, to me, again, probably a bad analogy, but I feel like it's the same thing, because when you see the game in which he was seeing it, like when I was watching some of the anticipation, he was just he was Neo. He was in the Matrix. Like, I felt like Keanu Reeves had put on the suit and he was John Wick or something, or he was the one. Like, he literally was seeing zeros and ones. He was no longer just seeing the puck. Because at one point, and again, I appreciate ESPN, because I did tweet this, that I loved in some of the power plays, they were putting the graphic up every time a person touched the puck. They put their name over it. Even though they were saying it every once in a while, they weren't always doing it. But that helped me see where the puck was going, because that thing whips around so fast. Sometimes you're like, who has the puck right now? And so for me as a novice, I love that, because I was able to keep up with, okay, puck's there, puck's there, puck's there. Puck. Oh, and for the goalie, you could see him kind of positioning himself depending on where he thinks the shot's going to come from. And every single time, just about 92% of the time, he was guessing right. Like, he was, or not even guessing, he knew this angle, I got to be here. This angle, I got to be here. Other than the save by, what's his name, Brock Faber, he was pretty much there. You know, like, and even with the blocking of the goal, where I don't know if that's the defenseman or the wingman who does that. He gets in his way and tries to obstruct his view. So if the shot's coming, he can either take his stick and knock it in, or he's just blocking the goalie's view.
Yeah, usually the center. Usually,
okay, that makes sense. Center, you're in the middle. Even with that, you could see him like not getting into that because like sometimes they get caught up in pushing a guy, and then you're screwed because you end up out of position. He didn't let that bother him one bit. Like, he was in the zone, and I agree. I feel like you ride the hot hand, but oh man, I could talk hockey. This is like, after that, like, again, I'm looking forward to talking some more hockey, because I could talk hockey when I watch the games like that. Playoff games like that, I could talk it all night, because it actually makes sense now. Like, I understand Minnesota being the state of hockey. Like, I feel like one of us right now. I feel like I'm a part of it. Like, I do. I have the glow. I don't know if you've seen Bruce Leroy in The Last Dragon, but I feel like I have that glow now. Like I'm there. Like, I'm like, okay,
I see it. I see it emanating.
Like, man,
you have an aura.
Yeah, it's like green and red, and it's just like Rick James, you know, or Prince. Like Dave Chappelle said, Prince with the purple light. Mine is like green and red right now. But we got to blame agent from IFA Marketing and firm. He started this firm way back, I think 2009. Blake Baratz. He represents Adam Thielen and C.J. So that's one of the most important reasons I wanted to get him on the show. But also, there's a lot going on in the NFL, so we'll talk. But we're going to definitely talk to him about C.J. Ham re-signing with the Vikings, what that means for the running game. But before we do that, we have a word from our sponsors.
We are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's an official sportsbook partner of Locked On. NBA playoffs are here. NHL playoffs are here. What a time to stack up some parlays, some same game parlays, in fact, if you're on FanDuel. And you can also get a no-sweat first bet. If you are a new customer, get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets. If for some reason that first bet doesn't win, you get another chance. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Safe, secure, very easy to use. Bet on everything, and I mean everything. Hundreds of ways to bet, whether it's NBA, NHL, MLB. Put together a little home run hitters parlay. It's a ton of fun. FanDuel lets you combine those bets too within the same game for a same-game parlay or a same-game parlay plus. Don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if the first bet doesn't win. FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel.
Well, now it's time for the Hangover Ron Johnson segment, and I got a special guest. I've been trying to get this guy on for a while, but he's super busy out there getting players signed, whether it's NILs with the IFA part of the business, the marketing side, or if it's just being an agent to some familiar names. I'll bring in Blake. Blake is an agent. I guess I can call you that, right, with IFA?
That is correct.
Okay, so Blake Baratz, I've known Blake for a while just through Adam Thielen and the social media stuff, or sorry, the community stuff that Adam does, and then getting to know Blake throughout just the seasons. It's been a long time with Adam Thielen being with the Vikings. I feel like forever, but now he's moved on to the Carolina Panthers. We won't jump into that right now, but I just want to talk to you about the NFL because I know you're very passionate about the players you represent, about player safety, and I saw you make a comment about the owners have approved. Now it doesn't have to be used. The NFL, the league has approved for owners to be able to play 2 Thursday night football games. So I'm going to jump out there about that one. They don't have to use it. It's just, hey, if you want a second Thursday night game, you can have it because we know the financial implications, but the player safety to me seems stupid. But in your mind, what is it going to take for the NFL to realize that short turnaround from a Sunday to Thursday is probably not the best idea for the players long-term?
Yeah, I mean, I've never thought that there was a genuine care for safety, let alone safety over dollars. So the more games they play on national television, the more opportunities they have to get networks involved or other partners involved is a bottom line. Now that bottom line gets spread to the players, but it's very hard for me to understand how you talk about player safety in one breath and then are turning around and playing, games in a 3 or 4 day span in the same breath and sending guys overseas and everyone's playing on a different surface. It's, to me, it's talking out of both sides of your mouth. And I've understood it's a business and the 32 billionaire partners are very smart at generating more dollars. That's what they're good at. So it doesn't make it right, but that's the reality of the situation.
And when you look at your advisory board, you talk about guys like Will Allen, Bobby Ingram, as former players, what are some of the things they're advising you guys on as an agency?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just there as mentors. It doesn't really matter if it's truly an advisory board position or if it's guys that have retired, like, Kurt Coleman or Adrian Claiborne or Zach Moore or whoever it is. I think it's just sharing the wealth of knowledge that you've had. Ben Lieber, yourself, whoever it is, anyone that's in our circle, we try to tap into our resources because it's part of the IFA family. And like, Ron, you're going to be able to talk to a guy about what to expect at rookie minicamp, probably, better than I can, or what to expect with a certain coaching staff. Mm-hmm. I can only share our experiences, and there's a lot of things I know, but there's a lot of things I don't know. So I think that's part of what we do is we've done a good job of building our collective network, and it doesn't matter whether it's in sports or business or philanthropy. That's part of the IFA network. We want to share. That's really all we're doing is we're just trying to make sure all the spokes of the wheel are connecting so you get the best of the best in all facets. It's not the football portion of it is what everyone talks about, but in the grand scheme of things of what we're doing, the life management stuff is a lot more, especially from a time consumption standpoint.
Yeah, and I've been around you to see guys like Tyler Johnson get drafted. I've seen guys like Adam Thielen get extensions. I just saw Chris Boyd sign with the Arizona Cardinals. But as an agent, marketing firm, full service, what does that time look like right now with your guys' day-to-day with GMs, as well as companies wanting to get a piece of these players that you guys represent? But what does that look like right now between teams, agents, players, leading up into the draft? Because April 27th, 28th, 29th, it's coming, faster than we can believe it. But what does that look like day to day for you?
Yeah, typically like around this time, we're finishing up free agency and we're going into the offseason program and leading up to the draft. This year we intentionally didn't go after any rookies this year because we were just recalibrating and adding to our leadership team. But typically in the draft process, it's going through visits, going through additional workouts, checking every box, seeing where teams have these guys, if there are concerns, going on last minute visits. The draft in and of itself, the draft boards aren't going to change dramatically from now until the draft in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. But you're clearing anything up. If there's any questions, some teams are inquiring, where do you think your player is going to go? What teams have expressed the most interest to you? It's kind of a chess mess, but at this time of the year, you get a good understanding of which teams are really interested. Like, I've been having conversations with our potential rookie class back from October or November during their college season to find out who likes who. And it's a process. The general managers have a job to do. They're worried about their practice squad, their 53-man roster, the extensions, free agency, and eventually they get caught up in January, February, and March to prepare themselves for the test that's in April. Sometimes the scouts have more influence. Some organizations, they have less influence. Sometimes you got owners that'll go in on draft day and move a guy on the board. So every organization, like any retail organization, Target operates a little different than Walmart, and Las Vegas Raiders operate a little different than the Minnesota Vikings. So you get an understanding of of how each operates. They all operate a little differently. Who has say so. Who you can get transparency from. Who it's strictly business about. That's just years of building up, like anything else, relationships and credibility.
Yeah, and when you look at the NIL, because I know you guys are now invested in college players as well from a marketing standpoint of these NIL dollars, whether it's, hey, we're just going to advise you, we're going to show you what to do, what not to do, how to help you get to it. How is that changing the scope of going from an NIL opportunity with a marketing firm to then being able to move over to say, okay, I want this person to represent me as an agent? Because I know that's kind of a gray area right now for the NCAA.
Yeah, I would say we don't really know yet because it's only been around for a year or two. So we're dipping our toe into it. I don't think we're jumping face first into it. And our idea, in a weird way, it's not that much different than how we're approaching marketing for our NFL players. But we're going into these college players and saying, listen, we don't know how many dollars are out there for you. That's not how we define name, image, and likeness. Right. We want to go and help build your brand, teach you how to be a pro, understand how to handle the media, understand social media. How do we get involved in the community? There's no better way to earn dollars than by showing the community, especially in a community like Minneapolis, that you're engaging and you're authentic and you want to give back and you care. At the end of the day, a lot of the schools, whether they want to admit it or not, are bringing NIL deals for guys to play football at their school or basketball at their school. And we just tell guys, like, don't get it twisted. Like, you're getting paid that amount of money to play football at Georgia or Ohio State. It's not because as a right guard, you're coming in and you're marketable. Let's just call it what it is. I'm not saying don't accept the money. I'm not saying you don't deserve the money. Let's just not call it marketability. You're getting paid to play football there. And you're not going to be more marketable when you go third round at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brands aren't looking to spend $150,000 with a guy that has 3,000 followers and plays guard. Like, it's just not reality. So you can call it whatever you want. And that's why we're particular of who we work with, because we want the guys. Will there be dollars that come? Yes. But we got to go build the brand up first. And that's the same thing we do for C.J. Ham or Adam Thielen or Jonathan Allen. They just call it NIL because it's a collegiate program.
Yeah, and so when you think about that from a collegiate program standpoint, I'm seeing, like the Cavender twins at Miami, and you got this Livy Dunn young lady at LSU for gymnastics, making over a couple $1 million. Has IFA started to look at that? Like, not just the athletes within these colleges, but the athletes, like a volleyball girl at Minnesota, because Minnesota volleyball is one of the best in the country, that has a lot of followers. And it's like, hey, look, you are a great volleyball player. You have a lot of followers. Let us help you with this branding.
Yeah, so the short answer is yes. The longer answer is we're spending a lot of time building out our marketing team so that we can actually work with the brands that are trying to get into the NIL space, that are trying to get in the sports marketing space that we may already be working with, to then go say, hey, whether you work with an IFA client or not really doesn't matter. We're going to put an individualized plan together for you on how you can get into the space. And if you're Jack Links or Caribou or Wiley Wallabies Licorice, and it makes the most sense for you to deal with the volleyball team at the University of Minnesota, then that's the program and plan we're going to put in place for you. So it's yes and no. We're not just randomly going after student athletes across the country. We're trying to figure out where it makes sense from an influencer perspective for the brand first. Because we're naturally in the National Football League space, there's a benefit to us to working with the student athletes that have the opportunity to go to the National Football League on the talent side of our business. But to your point, there's a whole lot of opportunity for other student athletes and for brands to take advantage of other student athletes in that space, because those are the influencers. But I think there's an education piece to this, right? Like, they hear NIL, they don't know compliance, they don't know values, they don't know how to get hold of student athletes. It's an education process, and it's an education cycle, and it's still new, and the laws and the rules change every 6 months. And there's certain things you can do in Minnesota that you can't do in Georgia, and there's certain things you can do in Georgia that you can't do in Minnesota. So it's an ever-changing environment, and I'm fairly certain whatever the environment is today is not going to be the environment 24 months from now.
Yeah, because I mean, when you started this in 2009 and you had a vision, and then you look at 2011, Adrian Claiborne signs first fully guaranteed rookie deal. That's not talked about a ton. Everybody wants to talk about the RG3 and the Andrew Lucks, but they don't talk about the first fully guaranteed, rookie deal, especially for a non-quarterback player. But, as you guys grow and as what are the things you're trying to show the world that IFA can do, or just show your clients is what you can do?
Yeah, it's funny. We talk about that a lot internally. I think we're always trying to be progressive. We're always trying to think outside the box. We're always trying to have a comprehensive, holistic approach to guys' lives. And 98% of what we do has nothing to do with an NFL contract. So we're constantly trying to evolve within the bandwidth that we have. So that's where our network comes in. That's where our collaboration comes in. That's where our expertise and our credibility and our trust come in. We sit around our conference room next door and whiteboard a lot of stuff. And I'm always one that I think, I live kind of 10,000 foot view and really believe if we ideate and strategize and work together, we can accomplish anything. I really firmly believe that. And we have the team to execute it. That doesn't mean we're experts in everything. Sometimes we have to find the experts in certain areas to pull it off. But it all starts with the fundamental, belief that all of our clients have just a tremendous platform. They do, and they can make a huge difference. What that difference is different to every guy. Some guys want to use it philanthropically. Some guys want to give back to their own community. Some guys want to make enough money that they can retire and not do a thing again the rest of their life. Other guys want to make sure they can send all their kids to Harvard if that's what they want to do. Everyone's got different goals, and there's different timelines and metrics to accomplish each. But it's why it's more of a life management company than really a traditional sports agency, because there's a lot of different factors. There's a lot of moving pieces, and it's really important that the communication and the transparency is there that, for everybody, for us to actually go execute, because for 30 guys, it's a lot. Everyone's got a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, no, and I've seen, the business side of it. I've seen the family side of it, working alongside a lot of these athletes, whether it's covering them with Fox 9 and the Vikings, whether it's on, K-Fan, whatever it might be. And talking to guys like yourself, when you look at this, 2019, Adam Thielen signs a $64 million extension. Everybody's, I can't believe he's from Minnesota. I can't believe nobody drafted him. And you go on. And then you fast forward to now, and nobody expected Adam Thielen to not ever be a Viking. But what was that process like? Because when you think about Minnesota, when you think about Vikings, you don't ever think about it without Adam Thielen. And this is uncharted territory for a lot of fans, especially somebody like myself who, kind of grew up in the marketing media world around an Adam Thielen type of player in Minnesota. But what was that whole process like, realizing, you know what, Minnesota might not be the final stop, and it's time to go find you another team?
Yeah, again, I think it's all about being prepared and forecasting the future. We knew when he signed his deal, his restructure a year ago, that a year ago could have been the end of the line. So we educate our players on what's coming down the pipeline, what could happen, the good news, the bad news, the indifferent news. You don't want any surprises in the NFL. They're not accidentally leaving a $10 million check in your locker. So as long as you're prepared for it, then everyone has the ability to communicate on it. And again, it comes down to what Adam's goals are and what Adam and Kate's goals are. And was it, I want to retire a Viking no matter what? Was it, I want to win a Super Bowl? Was it, I want to play 1 more year? And I want to play 3 more years? What are his goals? And then ultimately, you know, I'm always very transparent. And I think when you can sit in a room and have a direct conversation, whether it's with a Rick Spielman, a Kwesi, a Coach O'Connell, an Adam, a you, you know, calmer heads can kind of prevail if we're communicating properly. So none of it was a surprise. Like in a perfect world, you know, if everything was perfect and the Vikings had salary cap space and he loved his role in the offense and he thought they could win a Super Bowl right this second, and, you know, would it have been perfect if he could ride off in the sunset in Minnesota? Absolutely. Like that would have made sense for everyone. But the Vikings have a new regime. They inherited a lot of stuff. They're kind of in between chasing a Super Bowl, a rebuild. You know, they got to pay another receiver. The role they asked them to do isn't, frankly, worth $10, $12, $13 million a year. So, like, we get it. Like, it makes sense. Like, you don't need to pay – Adam doesn't need to get paid $10 million a year to be a decoy, and it doesn't make sense for the Vikings to pay him $10 million a year to be a decoy. So, like, it made sense. And part of it is, you know, Adam is excited about a new opportunity. He's never played anywhere else. Doesn't mean he doesn't want to retire a Viking. He would have loved that. But to never have gone through free agency, to never have been in another building, to never had another team really want you, you know, is part of the exciting part. And his personality has always been like, I'm going to go earn it. I don't want anything handed to me. Like, you know, I think he's excited about helping rebuild something else. Like, that's exciting to him. And again, everyone's got different goals. Some guys are chasing Super Bowls. Some guys are chasing the money. He went to a great city. They got a good new coaching staff. They have a good front office. They have great public schools. He can golf. You know, there's a lot of philanthropic opportunities. So, you know, there's a lot for him to be excited about.
Yeah, and I coached with Frank Wright a couple of years with the Colts. I was an assistant under Dungy for one, and then under Caldwell. And so I know Frank Wright has that kind of Colts offense. I mean, you go back to Clyde Christensen, Tom Moore, who's with the Steelers, who went to the Bucks. It's going back to less and less of scheme and more my players better than your player. So yeah, I do think it's a great fit for Adam. I think, you know, their slant hitches, outs, they're the basic offense, digs, comebacks, curls that, you know, it's going to get out of what he needs it to get out of it. But you did mention that, like, you know, being a part of an offense where you're trying to figure out, okay, look, I was the man at one point, and now, like you're saying, hey, a lot of these routes are clear this out, or, you know, you're going to be the underneath route while JJ's the over the top route. I'm guessing that because I saw his wife, she tweets a ton. And I'm guessing that's a part of it. Yeah. Like how is that, you know, because Adam is never, you know, go off on people type of person. He's a real mild-mannered, respectable kid. You know, and you can always see it in everything he does. So how was that for him handling that? Like, because everybody could tell it was, we're going to force feed the ball to JJ. There was no secret. Kevin O'Connell said it coming in. I'm going to treat him like I treated Cooper Kupp at the Rams, not realizing like you don't have just a Cooper Kupp. You have Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. So yeah, I know that was part of it, but yeah, how was that mentally for Adam, realizing, you know what, I still can be the man somewhere else?
I mean, I don't think there's any secret about it. He was frustrated. I think the Vikings knew he was frustrated. He was frustrated, but he's a pro. Like, he's going to come. He's not going to bitch about it. He's not going to bitch his way out. Like, he's going to come in and work hard and be a pro. And I think that's why it was hard to let him go, because they know what he means to the organization. And at no point did he complain about it. But was it a frustrating year for him? Sure, it was, because he knows he could contribute more to the team winning. It doesn't come down to how many targets he gets. He wants to win.
Right.
It's not that much different than C.J. Ham, right? Like C.J. was used to playing 30% of the snaps under Mike Zimmer and Stefanski. And now, a new coaching staff comes in that's never really had a fullback on the field, and he plays 10%. But, they're growing. They're realizing, what? Things happened well when CJ was on the field. We have to adapt as a coaching staff. So, again, there was no animosity. Like, these conversations have been going on for a while. Like, we respect them. They respect Adam. These are all people I got to work with again in the future. He's a Ring of Honor type of guy. Like, he's going to be in this city, for the next 40 years in some way, shape, or form. He's done a lot of great things here. It's a business. Tom Brady moved on to a new team. Everyone
correct. Yep.
Everyone moves on at some point, and sometimes it's forced. Like Stephon Diggs situations, and other times it's amicable. And there are opportunities where it can be a win-win-win for everyone if it's handled the right way. So
yeah, no, and that's the thing I think people have to understand. It is a business. I know the fans, they were not happy. They love Adam. They wanted him here forever, but it's a business. It's a sport. Guys are going to come back and coaches are going to hang out with each other later. It's one of those things where, it's just something sometimes has to happen financially, because if the salary cap could be like baseball and you could buy whoever you wanted, football would look totally different. I was going to say to that point, last one before we get out of here, or maybe two more. I don't know. I'm like a strength coach. I never really give you the ending. But last one before we get out of here. When you think about that salary caps, money in the NFL, and how dangerous of a sport this is, what is it going to take? Because I know, like, there's been rumors before, like, oh, they're gonna walk out. The CBA can't get agreed upon, so the players are going to strike. I don't think that ever truly can work because of the, let's say 70% of the league doesn't make as much as a 30. So it never truly can be one unified voice. But what is it going to take for them to look at that salary cap and say, maybe it needs to be 30 million or whatever, $300 million, or maybe we need to find a way to give more guarantees to every player because of guys like DeMar Hamlin, guys like that don't have guaranteed contracts early in their career. That could have been life or death career ending, and it still might be. But he doesn't have guaranteed money. So what is it going to take for the NFL to really realize, and these owners to say, look, we have to find a way to make it better for both sides?
It's probably a 6-hour conversation. So we'll have to do it. But it's a problem. And like the NFLPA tries, but in my opinion, and I'm pretty vocal about it, it's not working. The union has tried, but what's your ultimate? The problem in the NFL, it's not about getting guaranteed contracts. It's that it's very, 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 very difficult for NFL players to get leverage because your rookie contracts, if you're a halfway marginal decent player, you're severely underpaid. Yep. Severely. I don't care if you're the number one pick in the draft. Joe Burrow's making $9 million a year, and Aaron Rodgers is going to make $60 this year. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, Justin Jefferson's on the books for $2 million this year. The top receivers are making $30. Lamar Jackson can't get a new contract, and he was unanimous league MVP. So it's very, very, very difficult to get to free agency, which means it's very, very, very difficult to get leverage. Tom Brady never got to free agency outside of asking for it. Russell Wilson got traded. Who are the best players in the National Football League? Joe Burrow's not getting to free agency. Patrick Mahomes isn't getting to free agency. Lamar Jackson got franchised, which is another mechanism. If Lamar Jackson's not good, he's going to get cut. But if you're really good and your contract expires, now we have a mechanism to keep you at a fraction of your market value.
Right.
So what do you think that does to the tier 2 QBs and the tier 3 QBs? Deshaun Watson lucked out by getting in trouble. He found a team to trade for him that didn't want him anymore. That's the only reason he got paid. Kirk Cousins got to free agency, which is why he got a fully guaranteed contract and was the highest paid quarterback in football. No one ever said he was the best quarterback in football. He had the most amount of leverage as the best quarterback in football. And that's why it's hard, because you have 2,200 players in the league. You're asking current players to fight for future players. The Tom Brady's aren't going to go to the NFLPA meetings. They're trying to win a Super Bowl at age 45. So what really needs to happen is you need to figure out a way to communicate consistently with 2,200 players. It's hard to get 6 players to agree on something, let alone an entire locker room, let alone 32 locker rooms, let alone future players and past players. Then your ultimate leverage is you don't step on the field.
Yeah. Well,
that's it. If you don't step on the field opening day, well, that network money isn't coming in, but you have to have an answer to the billions of dollars that the players need to live for the next 6 months. Because to your point, not every player has millions of dollars put away. The majority of the league is made up of fourth-round picks to undrafted players. Correct. So unless you go to an Amazon or an Apple or a hedge fund and say, let's set aside these $3 billion so these guys don't have to step on the field opening day, that's the only thing that's going to get the owners to come back to the table and be serious.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot right there. That's a lot. We're going to have to get Blake back after the NFL draft for sure then, because we definitely want to catch up, see where your players are at, see what went good, what went bad, and any advice for future players as well, because love your stuff, man. Appreciate everything you do for the community in Minnesota. Thanks for everything you've done for most of the players that I know, because I've heard nothing but good things. And so I want to thank Blake Baratz for joining me on the Ron Johnson Show.
All right, we're going to react to Blake Baratz here in just a second. Let me remind you to subscribe to the NFL Draft Buzz newsletter authored by Luke Inman here of Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's NFL Draft Buzz. Get the latest as the NFL Draft rapidly approaches, just 9 days away. Subscribe to it for free. LockedOnPodcasts.com/newsletters. LockedOnPodcasts.com/newsletters. Get the latest draft intel into your inbox.
Do it for us today, man. But just real quick, what were your thoughts on Blake Baratz? Like, for me, the C.J. Ham usage, like he talked about that. Like when you go from, what did he say? I don't even know the percentage he said, but when you go down to 10% usage from where he was,
from 30 to 10, I think he said
something like that. Yeah, when you think about the usage going down, but then you decide to re-sign, that's a negotiation conversation. Like you said, these conversations become ongoing with teams, agents, GMs, coaches. So I have a feeling, the Josh Oliver signing, I have a feeling the Vikings have talked about this with C.J. Ham. We do want to run the ball more. Like, I don't care what, and the fact that they haven't made a receiver a priority, they did just sign another DB, Joe Juwan. I don't know. I want to make sure I say it right, but Joe Juwan Williams from Vanderbilt, but then ended up with the Patriots. So they added another, and that's more of a depth piece. I still think Andrew Booth or Caleb Evans are your starters, are potential starters, depending on the draft, and Byron Murphy. So I think that's a depth piece, a special teams guy for sure, but a depth piece because we talked about what they needed going into training camp. And that's somebody you can get for not a lot of money. So I feel like they're not, it doesn't sound like receiver is a priority. I think this is one of those 49ers looking offenses. Deebo Samuels is the main receiver they have, and then there's George Kittle. The Vikings are built the same way now. You got multiple big tight ends, you got a fullback, and you have a dog receiver, and you have KJ Osborne, who I think is a solid wide receiver too. So that spoke volumes to me when he said that about that. And then also Adam Thielen being a purple jacket guy, I agree with that too. What did you get?
I was going to talk about Thielen. I just felt like he was very honest about the negotiations that they had. And I think, didn't he say that, he didn't want his client to be a $10 million decoy, right? Which is basically, and that's kind of an accurate classification. When you're playing with Justin Jefferson, you are a little bit of a decoy, is that you're trying to draw attention away from him so that he can thrive. And I thought Blake really kind of gave an honest analysis of the situation and took us behind the curtain. That was very interesting, but he was very clear that things are good. Like, it's business. It's not personal. Everybody's good. The conversations were respectful, and Adam wants to, make something of his career now in Carolina. So I respect that, but really good stuff from Baratz on both those guys. I loved it.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be in the media a lot, I think, during the season, because I'm guessing they're going to get Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. Anthony Anderson, you know what? Anthony Richardson could be the guy too. It could be a sneak attack where they tell us all that here's our guy, but Bryce Young did decline the rest of his visits, like his rest of his first round visits. He stopped them. So maybe the Carolina Panthers told his agent, like, look, man, he's our guy. I don't even want to BS you guys anymore. We're going to take him. So let's get ready. Like, let's get this playbook together. Bryce Young, Adam Thielen. This is our guy. So, we'll see what that looks like for the Carolina Panthers and what happens with Adam Thielen. But yeah, Blake Baratz, man, that was huge for him to kind of explain a lot of that, the conversations. That the expensive decoy, clearly we know how they felt now. I mean, we've seen the tweets. We've seen him say, I want a chance to be able to be me, and maybe he doesn't have the chance here. You know, in Minnesota, he didn't have the chance because Justin Jefferson became the focal point. And they weren't letting Adam Thielen be a true 1-and-1. Like 1A, 1B is Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne. Adam Thielen was becoming a 2. And I think the writing was on the wall. So I think it was a good decision for both parties. Just wish it could have worked out for Adam here. But, you know, we'll definitely have to get Blake back after the draft, see where his guys end up, because he is representing some guys as he bought up. And that process right now is crazy. But remember, people, if you want endless Vikings talk, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota on YouTube. You can also subscribe on the iHeartMedia if you get your podcast there, Spotify, iTunes. Subscribers help drive us, people, and we want to be with you guys and come along these guys along the way as we grow together. You know, this has been a fun project. I'm enjoying it. I hope you guys enjoy what we're bringing to the table. And remember, we're going to give you podcasts after every single game. Vikings press conference as well, delivering all the biggest news, and especially after the draft. We want to thank FanDuel for their continuous support. It's been a huge boost and a fun conversation. But I want to thank you guys for joining us today, and have a good one.